Well, good afternoon. I'm like I said in the last couple of videos or so, I'm getting ready for a show coming up at the beginning of November, and one thing that I like to make for those shows are these mugs. And I've actually had a couple of people ask me if I would, do another video on them. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing these few days. So that's what I'm going to put my video up. It's going to be about this. And this mug here is my mug. It's the prototype that I used to kind of figure out my processes and all on making these things. And it doesn't have any finish on the outside, which has actually turned out pretty good. It doesn't have any finish on the outside. I use it. I'm not going to say it gets used every day because it doesn't, but it gets used at least once a week. And, it's hand washed, put up to dry until the next time. But I use epoxy on the inside, and I use the, on this one it was, I believe it was Max CLR. That's what I used on this one. But I've since changed. That stuff's really expensive when you try to ship it. It's not a bad price at all until you ship it, and the price doubles. So I use a product from Lumelite. It's called Amazing Clear Cast, and it is an FDA compliant epoxy, so you can put it on the inside of these things and waterproof them, and people can drink out of them. So, but anyway, this one was made in 2014. And you can see here, made in 2014. Should be able to see that. But anyway, and like I said, it was my prototype. It's just kind of a rough kind of, mug. But I mean, it still works, and the inside is never cracked. I've never had to repair it. So anyway, if you're interested in seeing how I make these things, we'll get started on it right now. Alright, well, we'll just start out by cutting our blanks out of just raw logs. I'm wanting 3.5 by 3.5 by 6, and I'm just drawing out everything on these logs, making my straight lines so that I can get it on the bandsaw and get her cut. So I should end up with my 3 by 3, 3.5 by 3.5 by 6. And we'll just get it on the bandsaw, follow my lines. And I should get 2 blanks out of this one. And I got 1 blank out of some of the others. But, just had to make sure I cut enough. Alright, now since I'm going to be drilling or boring these things on the drill press, I've got to make sure that they're really square on both sides, or else I end up with a hole that's not straight. So we'll cut these up and get them on the drill press. Here I am. I progressively move up. This is about a 1.5 inch drill bit. I'm going 5 3/4 inches deep. So I want my bored hole finished at 5 3/4 deep and 2 3/4 diameter, inside diameter. I can go up to 2 inch on my drill press, and then I have to put it on the lathe to bore the rest. But I've got it between centers now, and I'm just getting ready to rough it out, rough out my blank, and I'm going to rough it out here and get a tenon put on it. And I'll do all my blanks the same way. And here I'm using my parting tool to put a tenon on the end. For my chuck. And I'll do, like I said, I'll do every one of these before I start turning any mugs. I'm using a big soft touch center that I made on the lathe just to get everything centered and lined up good, and it helps me as I have to remount it and things like that. It really helps me get it straightened back up. Now we're just getting ready to true up the very top. I'm just using a 1/2 inch ball gouge here to do that with. Double check it, make sure it's true, and it is. So now we'll pull up our tailstock and we'll just shape the outside. You can shape it any way you want. You can decorate it any way you want. You can burn lines in it. You can make it any shape you want. And once it's off the lathe, you can carve on them. You can burn them. You can do whatever you want to with them. There's really a lot of different things you can do. But here I'm just using some planing cuts. Now I'll do all my repairs on the lathe as I go. I found it really speeds everything up. I'm using coffee grinds to fill these voids. Just using coffee grinds. You can use whatever you want to do your repairs. Then I'll come back and solidify everything in there with CA. Just thin super glue. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some accelerator just so I can get back to work on it without having to wait for it to cure completely. And I'm just going to scrape it down with my skew, and that'll even up that surface really well. This mug's really turning out nice. As far as boring the hole, I use my 3/4 inch Carter & Son bowl gouge to reach down to the bottom of the hole and just pulled up. I lost that footage, or I may not have even got it, but for some reason I don't have that footage. But now I'm just kind of shaping up the rim to whatever I like, whatever I want to do with this particular mug. And I'm just using a 3/8 spindle gouge to round out the inside. You could just leave it flat. It still works just as well. If you like that more rustic look, you could just leave it flat. Now we're going to sand this thing up to 320 grit, inside and out. And I have a stick with sandpaper on it that I use to do the inside with, and I'll only do the inside up to 220, but I'll do the outside to 320. Always go back and sand with the green. See, the repairs are completely done now. All right, now I'm just getting ready to begin the waterproofing process on the inside. I'm using Amazing Clear Cast from Alumilite, and this is kind of old resin. That's why it's brown. It's usually like crystal clear, but it will cure up clear inside the mugs. It still works just as well. But always make sure that epoxies are thoroughly mixed. And when I get started, I'm using a 1-inch chip brush And I make sure that I load up the bottom really well. The bottom is all end grain, so you want to make sure that gets sealed up really well. Some of it will actually soak all the way through and come out the bottom, but that's fine. That's what they make sandpaper for. But now I'll start working from the bottom up, just using my brush and pulling up from the bottom with the epoxy, and making sure that I get in any deviations, any cracks that may be in the wood or anything like that. Make sure you get those filled up. And you can see here how I'm pulling up from the bottom. And this method keeps you from having to sand off a bunch of droplets. Like if some people will put epoxy on the inside and roll it around and stuff until it covers and then hang it upside down, then you have a lot of droplets you have to deal with. But this is my sanding stick, and I'm once the epoxy's cured, I get ready for my second coat and I sand it at 220 grit, and then do my second coat and possibly a third. Now I'm getting ready to do my handles, so I'm going to resaw these scraps off of my logs, my original logs, into small boards that I can cut my handles out of. And I've made a template that I'll just lay on here, and I'll draw it out and cut it out on the bandsaw. I made the template for something that I thought would look really nice, and it's really comfortable in your hand too. So now we'll just cut them all out on the bandsaw. Now I'll remove my bandsaw marks. I'm just using a pneumatic grinder with a rotary burr on it to take off the bandsaw marks, and just kind of start rough shaping this thing. You could use a Dremel or a drum sander or just about anything right here. Then I'm going to go to my router table, and I'm going to round over all the edges. And here I'm using a 3/8 round over, but a 1/4 inch would be just fine. You must be very careful here. Be aware of the rotational direction of your router, and be very careful on all your entry cuts, because it will yank this thing out of your hand and throw it across the room. But this really puts a nice touch on the handles. Gives it a nice rounded look. I like that. Then I'm going to start sanding. I'll start sanding at 120 or 80, depending on what I need to clean everything up. And I'll sand it up to 320, just like the outside of the mugs. Now I need to fit the handle to each mug, and each one will be different, so they have to be fitted. They'll be concave in the middle, and you may have to just kind of carve out to make everything fit really nice. Now I'm just starting my sanding at, I think this was 120 grit, and I'll sand up to 320 on all the handles. Alright, now I'm just using rubber bands, and I'm setting up all my mugs with rubber bands so that I don't have to put rubber bands on them while I'm trying to get my handles on. They're already there. All I have to do is pull them up over the handle. And I'll use just a 5-minute epoxy. This happens to be JB Weld, but it doesn't really matter what name brand you use. It's 50/50, and I'll use Alumilite Black in these because I like the look of the epoxy kind of running out from around these things. All right, now we'll butter them up, butter up the handles and get them mounted on the mugs. Always put just a little bit extra epoxy so that it'll kind of squeeze out. I think that looks good. It looks kind of like the handle's being held on with pine pitch or something. But I'll get it stood up nice and straight, and then I'll pull the rubber bands up to hold everything in place. This is a 5-minute epoxy, so you really don't have time to dally. You've got to be really quick. I could do about 2, sometimes 3 before it started hardening up. But here they are. I'll let them sit here for a few hours and they'll be good and cured up. Then we'll take the rubber bands off of them and start getting ready for finish. And by this time I've got 2 good coats of epoxy on the inside. Now I'll take my 320 sandpaper and I'll just go right around the edges where maybe, some epoxy, it may not be perfectly smooth at the top. I'll just knock all that down and smooth out the tops really nice. Now, what I'm going to finish it with is polyacrylic and a 1-inch foam brush. It's best to go ahead and do the handle first because the handle can be a little tricky. But I've just got my hand down inside the mug, and that way I can turn it however I need to. And I'll put about 2 to 3 coats on here, sanding at 320 between each coat. And it really gives this thing a really good, hard, durable finish on the outside. It's not waterproof, but it is water resistant. Do not allow these things to soak in water in a sink or anything like that, and please do not put them in dishwashers. They cannot soak in any kind of liquid. Only the inside is waterproof. The outside is not. If the wood starts to expand, it will crack the inside and it will leak. But here I am, I'm testing to make sure that they all hold at least a pint, and making sure that they're all waterproof. So I'll fill each one of these and they'll sit here for about 4 hours on this towel, and I'll come back every now and then and just double check and make sure none of them are leaking. If they are, they'll get sanded on the inside and get another coat. And this is after about 4 hours, and you can tell by the towel that there's no water on the towel. So they're all waterproof. Each and every one of my mugs gets tested like this. Well, all right then. That's how I make my mugs, and I really enjoy making those things, and people enjoy getting them from me. I've given away tons of those things, and I've sold a lot of them also. But we're just going to see how this works. This is my prototype. Like I say, they're pints, so they don't quite hold a 12-ounce beer. But this thing was made in 2014, and it's still waterproof, still works great. And beer tastes better in this than it does in a bottle. Plus, wood is also it's a natural insulator. You know, it's not like a Yeti cup or one of those thermos type cups or whatever, but it does, you know, it does keep it cold, you know, pretty well. But I hope you enjoyed this project, and I know I've done mug videos before, but that was, you know, a couple of years ago. And for any new viewers that maybe not have seen those, then that's one of the reasons I made this video. And I'm getting ready for my show, and so yeah, the show is on the weekend of the 5th of November. I'll put a date at the bottom, and it's at the Clarence Brown Conference Center in Cartersville, Georgia. If anybody may want to come by and see what's going on. I believe it's $5 to get in. It's all an indoor show. So, but anyway, y'all have a nice day, and we'll see y'all down the road.